Hey, it's your boy Chrys, Players Pick Podcast, here to shout out my sponsor, Road Roaster Coffee. Road Roaster Coffee makes an amazing array of light, medium, and dark roasts. My favorite is this kick-ass right here. You can check out roadroastercoffee.com and use Players Pick as your coupon code for 20% off your very first order. Enjoy the pod.
Players Pick Podcast. Picks and perspective with Chris Johnson. Palpable. Paradox. Polarity.
All right.
Peachy.
Grab my Whoopie here.
Pizzazz. Personal.
Sometimes you want to punctuate with some sound.
Right?
You never know. So where am I talking to you? Where are you at?
I'm in Northern California, Chico area.
Okay.
If you're familiar with that, it's Chico State University here. It's a small
nice.
town, about an hour and a half north of Sacramento.
Okay.
Yeah. And where you're in Texas?
Yes, I'm in McKinney, which is a northern Dallas suburb, basically about 30 minutes north of Dallas.
I love Dallas. Dallas has got a bunch of great musicians there.
There's been a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. See what this Welcome to chat.
Oh, Andy, man,
nice to...
that's beautiful. It's funny. I asked a few friends on Facebook. I was like, hey, I'm going to chat with Andy today. Like, anybody got any questions or any things that, would be cool to bring up? And my buddy Gregory below me, he's like, simply save some tone for the rest of us, Andy.
Save some tone. There's plenty of tone to go around. You just got to dig for it.
Yeah. Well, but like, I honestly, that's one of the most interesting when I think about you and I think about your playing and I just think about, I've been in the industry for a long time and you have such a great reputation for having this otherworldly tone, and I think you do some sort of stereo thing with your Mesa rig, right?
Yeah, I guess I've had this particular rig, about 2005 is when I started using the Lone Stars. And about that time, 2006 we had released the Resolution record. And for that, if you know that record, it's basically done with one guitar, bass and drums. There wasn't going to be any additional guitars or keyboards or anything. It was just like, so we, took a long time to really work on the tone and kind of went, I won't say Eric Johnson path, but it became clear that, what would Eric do? We'd go down the path of really taking our time with mic placement and all the factors of the signal chain without using EQ. That was kind of the caveat that we set for ourselves. Mike Dane, the bass player in my band and guy that engineered and co-produced the record, wanted to get everything as organically as we could. And so through that, I think I worked harder on tone at that point than I ever had in my career. Of course, you always want a great sound, but I think in that earlier part of my career, it was more about just wanting to capture the best performance. How was I playing? Not that the sound wasn't important, but again, it was all about the vibe. And there's even some tracks on my first Ear Ecstasy CD that were meant to be demos, but it was like some of the tracks are a Zoom. The original Cry For You, Carpe Diem, Busted Soda, not known for its, Eric Johnson-y type tone, let's just say. But in the moment, I was able to play fluidly, got a good performance, and then wasn't able to replicate it, so I guess I got to keep that. But I was okay with it at the time because it was the vibe of it. It was just the performance was there. But then I guess as I went through my career and really, as you mature and your focus becomes broader in some ways, certainly by the early to mid 2000s, that's when I started really focusing on just trying to get the greatest tone that I could. And so just wanting it all, basically. I want to have a great performance, but man, especially when you're recording a record that it's just one guitar and you're really exposed and that guitar is going to be way out in front of the mix, it better sound good. So that's a time that I really started working on the stereo vibe of it. So I was running, I had a couple of Marshalls, this 68 Plexi and a 79 JMP running loud and clean. And then I would run usually an EP3 Maestro Echoplex on one side, and then sometimes another Echoplex or an old Chandler digital delay rack unit that sounds really nice with some modulation. Or early on, I had a full tone tube tape echo. Didn't like that as much as the old Maestros. But to replicate that live is problematic because the tape echoes were always just, they're very volatile, old vintage tape recorders, basically.
Sure.
So I had gotten a deluxe Memory Man, Electro Harmonics. And the beauty of that old unit was, is that it's got modulation available on the repeats, which kind of gets you in the sweet spot of when the tape echo is just out of alignment or whatever's going on that gives it that chorusy repeats, right? Mm-hmm. And so I started putting together two Memory Men. Is that our plural here? Memory Mans?
Yeah, Mans. I think
we could say Mans because I guess that's accurate because you can't say Memory Men. Anyway, internet, help us out here. What is the correct plurality of that? But I would string them together in series and sometimes split them in stereo, but became very fond of that. What I was doing on the Resolution record, which was like dotted eighth quarter, I'd set something up about 500 milliseconds on one side and 375 on the other for that kind of Dave Gilmour, which I learned through Simon Phillips. That's the way he would set up echoes when I was recording with him. Okay. So, yes, I learned this from David Gilmour. Well, I'll have that, thank you. It's very common, obviously, but yeah, why not? And so then the Memory Men, I'll stick with that for now. Those are also kind of volatile. I was using the older vintage ones, and the switches were always going bad. And the Timeline came out. And I spent a lot of time with the two Memory Men and the Timeline, just getting it as close as I could. And I got about 92% there is what I used to call it. And of course, with a much broader flexibility. That the Timeline does a million things. It does it great. It's a great sounding unit. With the expression pedal, then I could control. Because with the Memory Man, I had these plant hanger brackets on the volume, on the mix, so I could just reach down with my foot to bring my level up and down as I would need. But then the Timeline, of course, came along, and that was a game changer. And that really, again, did a great bazillion things, but I would use two sounds. So now I've got a pedal coming out that I can't talk about, and it's coming out in June, though. And that's what you're hearing here, which is basically, it's my ultimate echo. It's a dual echo, and I wish I could tell you all about it, but you're going to learn about it soon. Anyway,
sweet.
But yeah, so that's turned into that is kind of, I'm known to be soaking in it, Madge. I've got lots of sauce on, but I just did this thing for, I think it's Premier Guitar, and they ask you to do a thing called Hooked, where you're like, what was that moment that got you into guitar or music? In my earliest musical memory is the guitar solo from I Saw Her Standing There, the great, flip side to I Want to Hold Your Hand, and George Harrison's, reverb turns guitar to, what is it? And so that was a chamber reverb. That was a concrete room below the studio with a speaker and a microphone capturing that verb, right? I think that has a lot to do with why I love that spacey, echoey sound, or my early surf record by the Surfaris. They had a version of Apache, which was their version of what they heard Hank Marvin do, or Jürgen Ingman, actually, with the first hit. Anyway, tape echo, chamber, reverb. So the way this echo has kind of been curated, it sounds, there's no reverb on now. This is just... But the way those repeats are feathering into each other, it turns into kind of a reverb effect. Right? There's my treble. A little wet. So that's kind of where I'm living.
Man, Andy, thank you for sharing all that. And am I right that it sounds like you were a little bit, this whole setup was a bit complicated, right, to try to sort it out in the beginning, and you
Yeah.
spend all this time, and now you're at the point of like refining, and you're getting a couple of tools that are simplifying.
That's totally it. Yeah, that's again. Once we can talk about the signature pedal, I didn't need anything to do a million things. I just really wanted that sound, you know. And so that was the whole premise of going for this collaboration. But then they're like, but we could also do this. So it is capable of. You can get about 8 presets in it, but it's all you know in the size of a smaller, you know, pedal, right? So the footprint's small, but the sound is the best I've ever heard. I'm so happy with it. So, folks, you'll learn about it soon. but I've been sworn to secrecy. I can't tell you, mate.
That's great. I think that'll be an easy sell for a lot of people because you're one
for
of
me,
those guys.
me at
You're
least,
one of those guys.
I'm the one that wanted it. It's like, all right. Selfishly, it's like, as long as I get one, okay. No, I think it will appeal to a lot of players just because, it's just a gorgeous tone.
Yeah, I'm interested. So I'll keep an eye out.
We'll put you on the list. We'll put you on the list. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool, man. Well, it's interesting because it's to hear about your initial, experiences of the guitar and how that's kind of continued to inform you all these years later, right? And then in the middle, or years ago when you're doing the kind of the glam rock thing with Danger, I was thinking about like, well, that tone is not this tone, right? Like that tone was a little, more straight ahead shred guy like stuff for the 80s. And I'm wondering, I guess you kind of, said something towards that, but like essentially your tone these days seems to inform, how you play with this type of spaciousness, with this type of kind of, wide uplifting feeling. I don't know. There's kind of a thing that, so it's probably a dual thing though. Am I right? Like where you're like, oh, I've always sought after that tone. So now I'm achieving it, but also that tone then turn informs what I play and what I create. Totally.
And so thinking back to, if you're hearing me in Danger, that even though it was definitely shred era, but I'm coming from Steve Lukather land,
Sure.
And he was, he got effecty as well at a certain point, but always said, most rock guitar solos seem to have that delay on there. There was always at least the 350 something in there, just to give it a bit of ambience, right? But certainly once I had the Memory Man thing going, then it's I can see, and your question is great in that it's kind of working both ways. I'm trying to achieve the sound that's in my head, but then that's affecting how I'm writing and playing, and so it kind of, and then but now that I'm doing this, I need the delays to do this. I need the echoes to sound a certain way. And I write a lot of material that's now, because it allows me to be more of a piano. It gives you that sustain in a space.
Man, that's beautiful. You're gonna make me cry, dude. That was incredible.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, no, like you're like your stuff is 10 miles wide, and like that's why it's like I think even if we can replicate it, get your pedal or get your previous setup and all this stuff,
right?
It's how you approach it and how easeful you seem to be in choosing these things. And I mean, I guess we could talk about influences, but really it's like, it feels like it's something deep inside of you that you can, that you're kind of contacting when you play that way. To me, it's what it sounds like. I mean, do you have,
I can't imagine a bigger compliment, man. I'm humbled by that, but I can also say that I think that's accurate. There's so much, there's, I think that anybody that touches a guitar, there's all the sounds that have led up to that moment. There's every great guitar tone you've heard. And that's the way it's always been for me, whether it's, I mentioned Eric, of course, and you think about Stevie Ray and Jimmy, and the great blues guys might be Albert King or BB. I mean, it's kind of endless, the great sounds and influences that we all have and aspire to reach that. But then we can't really physiologically replicate, or gear wise. It's just they're them, and then we can love that and be inspired by that. But to go down the path of trying to be identical, it can be fun, and it might be somebody's end desire, and there's nothing wrong with that. But anybody that's kind of searching, or at least wanting to be, their own person, right, and have their own sound. I can see now. I mean, it's taken me. I'm 58, so I could say that I'm just starting to get to a place where it's starting to sound like me, And it may have been happening all along, but it's hard for me to be objective about it.
Sure.
Because I can also hear all that, so I can hear where, that's me. I'm trying to do that, but that's all part of it. I think some players, obviously get there so much quicker. You look at Eddie Van Halen or Jimmy, he was there and only got to live to 27. So, but then I've had the benefit of having a long life and always been participating, at least as a fan, but always as a player. And just trying to keep growing. That's the important part. It's never to just lay back and go, man, I'm sounding pretty good today. That's, I'll never have that thought. I might be encouraged occasionally by something that I do like that I've done, and that's handy. But there's always that level of, but man, I know that there's so much more that personally I'm capable of, but we're all capable of. I think I've said it many times, we're just kind of scratching the surface of the potential of the instruments, a fairly young instrument, the electric guitar, and how it could be manipulated sonically and just with the fingers, how great of variety of tones and expression you can get out of this instrument. And Jeff Beck being a prime example of somebody achieving greatness in 1965, and then he just kept freaking going. He could have stopped after Shapes of Things, and that's freaking monumental. But just continued to grow, and that's so inspiring. It's so encouraging, But it's like, okay, well, I'm not trying to be him. I just want to be able to continue to dig deeper with whatever it is that I'm trying to get out, emotionally, or be it energy or happy or sad, just to break down the whatever barriers there are between thought, instinct, and instrument. We can think about it, we can analyze it all day, but the beautiful stuff is happening when none of that's connected, and that we're just kind of letting all this stuff go and really reacting in the moment. And it's hard to do. There's a lot of noise out there. That's part of the meanings behind Electric Truth, this new record. If you look at the album cover, I'm standing in this crowd of people, but they're all just kind of blurring. They're kind of going away. Mm-hmm. Metaphorically, it's as long as I've got my music and my guitar, it helps me tune out all that noise, all the stuff that we deal with on a daily basis, from misinformation, disinformation, just noise, So music's always been that for me. It's always been that safe place to be, that solace, that, tune everything else out, and especially once you're able to participate in it with an instrument, and the deeper you go and the more connected you get to the instrument, the more valuable you find it, But it happens on it's been happening my entire life, from picking up and learning my first single notes and single chords. There was always the passion's there already, whether it's coming out that way to whoever's listening, didn't matter. It's like, I'm feeling it, this is great. And, we had that as players. It's like when somebody hits the golf ball of the perfect swing one time and it goes. Doesn't always happen that way, right? But it's when it does happen and you really connect and get that right sound at that right moment. Boy, it's a magical feeling, And if you can get other people to, feel that with you, that's when things can be real magical,
Following that thread, thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. Following that thread, though, it seems as though you have like a sensitivity towards like energy and sound and all this. And I'm curious, like, were you raised with like a religion or a spiritual faith or anything that kind of connected you in any way to life in general, and then in music, or was that something that just kind of evolved through music?
That's a great question. I grew up Catholic, and so fortunately, the 9 o'clock Sunday masses were guitar mass. So there was music to draw me in deeper.
Really?
I didn't find the Catholic masses, they were a bit generic, I think. Though it was good educationally to a degree. I think that my deep spiritual feelings aren't specific religiously, if that makes sense.
Sure.
It's a deep connection that I feel that I don't know that I could particularly verbalize, other than it helps me be a very empathetic person. It helps me. I've always, and I was just saying this earlier today, that I started realizing how I behave musically is exactly how I behave just as a human being in society and on the planet. Whereas, if I'm in a band situation, it's not about what I can do and here's how great I am. It's like, what's going on around me? Where's that kick drum landing? Where's the bass player within that? Is there a vocalist? I know that whatever I do is going to affect overall. And if you're in a room with players that have that same level of listening and ability to real time analyze what's happening in not in a cerebral way, but in very much an emotional way, that's when really great music can happen. That's the beauty of live music with players that are all feeling that same way. But it's the same way if I'm walking down the street, I'm going to greet everybody with respect and a smile if they want to return, even if they don't. I want things to feel good. That's my nature, and I can only surmise that comes from a spiritual place. And I feel it very strongly, with whatever I do in life. I'm not a saint. I'm not proclaiming any kind of superiority, but I can't imagine that there's a better way to live life than treating everybody and every living thing you come in contact with respect and love, and adapting accordingly. I just want I'm a peace seeker by nature.
I can hear it in your music.
Well, thank you, man.
That's why I asked, because I'm like, there's something, and I love that you have a hard time putting it into words exactly, right? Because I think that what we do in life oftentimes speaks to our priorities and like what our general outlook is, and you kind of outlined it that way, that like how you felt like, oh well, the way I do my music is the way I try to be in life, and vice versa, and I try to listen and see how I fit in. And oh man, that's incredible, because how often are we seeing examples of the opposite? Oh, let me elbow my way into this conversation or this particular let me show you how badass I am. But that's usually a younger, slightly, more immature way of approaching a thing. And then as we see our effect on the world, we go, oh wait, I said that and that affected that person that way. Let me do better about that, and seeing how we can show up in a more kind and peaceful way, and so that maybe it's a win-win situation and not just a me thing, right?
Yeah. No, and I still catch myself with really good friends having excited conversations, and they'll start talking about something. I'm like, and I'll just jump in. It's like, no, dude, just chill, and But that's just, I guess it's human nature in a way. But yeah, you're right. It's speaking to what you just said. You never know the difference you're going to make in somebody's life in one simple moment of kindness. I remember, and this is just a small. It's beautiful when you hear something back years later. There was this young girl that was there was a group of kids when Danger was doing our second record in his New River studio. It's no longer there, I think, in Fort Lauderdale. This would have been the second record, the Screw It record. So it was this group of kids that were Danger fans, and they were hanging out every day. And, some guys, some girls. And there was this one younger girl that was she seemed like an outlier. She would, hang back from the pack. She seemed very shy. But I'd always make a point to just go say, hey, is doing okay? Everything okay? And we'd chat a little bit, and whatever chit chat happened at the time. And years later, maybe it was 20, 25 years later, I was doing a gig somewhere in Florida, and this woman comes up to me and says, I just want to thank you for always taking the time to talk to me. I'm a school teacher now. And so it was this young lady, and I remembered her. And again, it was just such a simple thing to do, just to be cool, just to be nice to somebody. And again, I'm only illuminating that. Again, it turns out she's had a very troubled childhood at the time and was going through stuff at home. And, just anybody you're walking down the street, you don't know what's going on in their life. And if you can just brighten their day in any way, boy, you don't know the effect in the life that you could change just by that simple act. So anyway, this is general stuff, but it's good to talk about, just knowing that, yeah, you can make a positive difference every day.
Yeah. I actually, I believe heavily in that, and I do my own kind of meta world, loving kindness prayer type towards humanity.
Wow.
When I can be in that place, and I try to be in that place more often, right?
That's
so
awesome.
Like, oftentimes I go out for a walk with my dog, or just be out in the world. What I noticed is that oftentimes we can freeze space between us and strangers at times, right? Like, so we can see them and go, oh, they look like X, Y, and Z, right? And so, and when we put that label on it too quickly, then it's that space is frozen, and it's kind of you've almost decided, and it takes more effort to break past that. But if we can kind of like assume the best about people, if we can not only even assume the best, but just be like, hey, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm sending love, kindness towards other humans, because that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in feeling and seeing that in my friendship circle, in my work circle.
Sure.
Is to because I think what we underneath everything as humans, we do recognize that this life is difficult. It's like being in a body that we didn't necessarily sign up for, and then having all these complicated waves and everything that happen, dealing with sicknesses and dealing with challenges, so if we can not add to the dumpster fire, right, that'd be great.
That I love your path, man. I love what you're doing. That's beautiful. Yeah, so more of that, please.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit, this guitar that you're holding,
yes,
it's this is the one I see you with the most, although I think you have like a regular humbucker one, right?
That's right. So this is this was the prototype for what became the ATZ 100, which was the Ibanez had a line of ATZ guitars with the roasted maple. But my main guitar, which is the one with the humbucker, was the prototype, which was the AT 100 from and the prototype was from 1994. I had a gig this last weekend, so it's still in the gig bag downstairs. But this is the 3 single coil version. It feels and sounds beautiful to me. Now they're gonna make an ATZ with the humbucker too. So that's gonna be coming, I think, maybe this year.
Cool.
I think so. Yeah.
And are those DiMarzio pickups or what?
Yeah, they're the cruiser, kind of the Bucker, single coil voiced in tone, but the noiseless thing, which is nice. But cool. I still love a great noisy old Strat pickup too.
Sure.
I used a couple of Strats on the Electric Truth record. I used a 65 and a 1960 hardtail and a couple of things. So it's weird. It's like, as much as I love the old Strats, I can use them on a couple of things, but I really need those more modern, amenities and just the more stability of a great Ibanez that they build for me. I'm very fortunate to have a company like that that builds these guitars for me.
Yeah. When did the Ibanez thing, how did you get connected to them? Because I remember, like, looking back at the Danger stuff, you were playing Kramer, is that right?
Yeah, that's true. So that was my first big endorsement, was Kramer 1988. I hooked up with a guy named Buddy Blaze, who was the artist relations guy. He'd worked with Vivian Campbell and Dime early in their careers. And anyway, he's the guy that actually knew that Danger was looking for a guitar player, and got me into that situation. So I, was Kramer endorser. I joined Danger. I was playing the Floyd Rose Sustainer guitar,
Oh yeah.
It was before all the Fernandez stuff. It was a great unit. And so oddly, about I don't know if it was 1990 or 91, Kramer just suddenly went out of business. This huge guitar company had Eddie Van Halen, all these, Richie Sambora. They were doing quite well on the surface. Something was clearly wrong, and they went out of business. So I was in a pretty fortunate position in that, I was in a band on MTV, and most companies will want to work with anybody that's regardless of their playing, if they're getting that kind of exposure.
Sure.
But ironically, I'd met the Ibanez artist relations guy, a guy named Chris Kelly, when I was still with Kramer. We had checked in for an AM show at the hotel there nearby the convention center, and an earthquake, minor, but an earthquake hit. And I was like, I checked into the room. I was in a various state of disrobe, and the room starts shaking, and your point of reference to the earth is now no longer there. You're like, oh shit. I ran out into the hallway, and there's Chris in his underwear. And the building stopped shaking. Goes, hey, I'm Chris. I'm Andy. How you doing? Yeah, we're Ibanez. Oh, I'm Kramer. Anyway, so we became earthquake buddies. So then I saw him, at that NAMM show. So now I'm in a position where I'm kind of shopping for a guitar company that I'd like to work with, And at that particular NAMM show, and at that point, of course, I'm in danger, but I want to be Satriani and Vi and Eric Johnson.
Sure,
I wanted to. And so obviously Ibanez had, Paul Gilbert and Reb and Joe and Steve, but even, George Benson and Joe Passett and John Schofield had his guitar with them. So these seemed like a company that would be great for me to work with. And I went to them, and he says, yeah, we love your playing. We're not a big fan of your band, but well, our it's like I think they said our program is full. I'll see what I can do. And so he talked to the powers that be in Japan or whatever. Say, yeah, we want to work with you. So that started the path of we want to build you your ultimate guitar. And I'm like, no idea. I just happy to have one with 6 strings, So they went through this whole thing with me and was sending me all these different guitars. The USA Custom I was using for a while, but I had this part strat that Kramer had made for me from maybe Warmoth or Chandler parts. And that was the neck. I thought, whatever I have, I want this neck. And they had an RG style body. Well, they painted it like Eric Johnson's old 54 Strat. So therefore the 2-tone burst, rounded maple neck, but it had no finish on it. And that was it. So that's the prototype from 1994. And that became my main guitar to this day. So everything else is kind of a version of that. This is like a version of that, decidedly more Strat with the 3 single coils. But I like having that bucker. I need that for the versatility. I don't know how Eric gets that big old fat tone out of that single coil.
It's crazy,
but,
right?
I'm a mere mortal, so I need my humbucker.
And what do you know what kind of like radius you ended up with on a?
It's
on
a 12-inch radius. This factory one has I think they were making them with stainless steel frets. The newer ones I'm going to put back to the usual nickel frets in it. I prefer that. But these are cool too. They have a cool tone, just a little brighter. But
is it a audible difference for you between the frets?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No doubt.
Yeah. So I know,
but they feel great. They last longer.
Sure.
So maybe I'm being influenced subliminally. I don't know, but I'm also I don't like change that much. If I've worked so hard on a particular thing, I want to stick to every little thing about that.
That makes sense. Well, I'm curious about when did the relationship with a guitar pick begin? Was it right at the beginning? And what do you remember about your first guitar picks? Yeah. And how did you get to play what you're playing now?
Okay. Good question. Not many people ask about that. I remember, I would just, whatever they had in the jar at the frickin' music store, if I could afford a dime or whatever it was. But I was always dropping picks. So I don't know if you remember the big Dorito-sized triangle picks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they look like the tortoise shell, but I'm sure it was whatever material that was legal by then in the 70s. So I was playing with those, but I remember them being thin or medium. I don't even remember. When I really found the pick that I'm still using, I remember very specifically, because I think for a long time it's like whatever I could get. I don't remember being that tuned in to the differences, though there are huge differences in every size, every material, obviously they make huge differences. But there was a guy, when I was in Miami, I went to school at the University of Miami from 1983 to 1985. The first summer that I stayed in Miami in between school years, I got a job teaching guitar at Sunnyland Music in Sunnyland, Florida, which is like maybe a couple towns south of Coral. Good Lord, Coral Gables, where the University of Miami was, just a couple towns south of that. And there was a sales guy there. His name's Amit Chatterjee, and he happens to just be a freaking amazing guitar player. He plays like Holdsworth. And man, wow. I think he had an orange Charvel. He said some crazy guitar, a red Charvel. A wonderful Indian guy. We became great friends, and he had this purple Tortex Jazz 3 Jim Dunlop pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
He goes, here, try this pick. I think you'll like this pick. And I started using it, and that was it. And I've used them. So that was 1984. Any mathematicians here care to add that up? But that's the most consistent part of my signal chain. You know, it's still
Really?
the pick. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's interesting, too, because the Tortex and the small size, it's not the greatest sounding pick, you know, but it's because it's the size of it and the tip. I developed my time with this pick. So I recognize for a while I used the XL Jazz 3 nylon. I think Bucket had them made for him personally.
Yeah.
EJ uses the nylon as well, and it's a great tone. But for some reason, I just connect better with the string. Or I love a Fender Extra Heavy. I can get into that and get some great tone with that. But at the end of the day, things feel better, and there is certain top end that I get that I can only get with this pick. Some really the chimey upper harmonic stuff. That right there. I'm not going to get that with any other pick. Almost had it. Not bad.
Oh,
So it's partially familiarity and comfort, and I'm gonna start a GoFundMe for a new mic stand. Just one fucking
man,
stand.
I was gonna tell you, I'm like, bro, I want to send you overnight a new mic stand right away.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. That is a little straight. By the way, I'm a lead singer. I gotta keep adjusting. No, it's probably because I'm weak as hell and can't tighten the thing. But anyway, until somebody manly shows up, I'll just be doing that for a while. Sorry, dude.
So no, you're good. So it's a 1.14 purple Tortex Jazz.
Well, it was,
3.
but it's a minor black because
Okay.
I've got the custom printing.
Oh, sure.
I'd do a zoom, but then it would focus on this, then I'd be out of focus. So it's
Yeah.
got my little ATB logo and my signature.
Oh, cool.
But the original ones were purple, and maybe the ones in the shops are, I don't know.
And
But
it's
1.14 is correct, yeah.
This is an XL that you're using, or the regular?
No,
size?
this is the regular size. I had a nylon XL for a while that I was using back in the late 90s, which I loved. They're great sounding picks.
I wonder if because the Jazz 3, the Tortex, because they're kind of stamped out of a sheet, they have a bit of a square edge, and that is then tumbled off, like
Really?
in the process. Yeah, so I assume that that's going to be a part of the tonality that you were just demonstrating, where you get this top end, because even though the thing is kind of slightly rounded off on the edges, it's more of a square edge than like the nylon. When you look at the nylon edges, it's a molded pick, right? And it has kind of it's more rounded.
Oh, so you're talking about not the actual tip, but the edge of the pick as it's going from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just
So
on
yeah,
the
because
sides.
I'm getting that tone by picking underneath the string. Well, what do I usually have this door closed? My cabinets are in another room. Like, man, that sounds a bit larger today because I'm getting sound in here too.
Oh, I see.
No separation from now on. I'm just going to leave the door open.
Nice. No, it sounds great. Thanks for sharing that. It's really cool to hear about the pick journey. I spent a lot of time over at Jim Dunlop and working with the Dunlop family years ago.
Wow.
And made a lot of picks for a lot of different people over there.
Dang, okay, killing.
I don't know who you work with over there, maybe Brian Kehoe or somebody.
Brian's the guy I've dealt with for the longest now. Yeah, he's been with me
great.
a long time. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great player too.
Yeah, right on.
So I'm curious, like at this point in your career, like you've got so many accomplishments here, and you're kind of like, really dialing in the tone and creating albums that and this new one, Electric Truth, is incredible all the way through.
Oh,
by the way,
thank you, man.
But I'm curious, like what challenges you these days in regards to guitar and like making albums and stuff. I mean, where is the challenge for you at this point? Because to the outsider looking in, or the less experienced player, we're like, oh, Andy can figure it everything. He can do anything, right? So where does it lie for you?
That's funny. It's hard for me to be objective like that, because every day it's just, whatever strengths I'll become aware of that I have, I recognize that there's so many other weaknesses, but though I don't consider things on strengths and weaknesses. I think my verbiage is misleading there, but I just know that no matter what level I get to, I know there's so much farther to go, and I'm so glad I feel that way, because if I ever thought I was great or whatever, or thought, well, I've done that, what's next? I like being a student. I like being someone, that's open to learning and wanting to grow. And so once I got back into really being a practicing player, which there was years where I got away from being the student. I was in, had a career going, and you're involved on the instrument all the time and you're writing, but it's different than, okay, let me challenge myself specifically, or at least, just be exercising, you know what I mean? Obviously we need to exercise as breathing human beings, which I don't do enough. I went today, I had a bad bout of COVID back in January, and I'm just now starting to feel like my lungs are getting back. It wasn't a horrible case of COVID. It was mild, but the lung thing didn't clear up and stuck. Just up until the last couple of weeks. That's my excuse anyway. So if I look 30 pounds heavier, that's why. Blame it on the COVID.
Yeah.
And so, but no, just when I got back into practicing, it might have been 10 years ago now, even though I'd always been playing, I started getting together with just, let's play some standards for a while. Let me get back into practicing jazz, because that's always a good way to challenge and train your ear and really work on melodic playing, because you can't just blaze in a particular pentatonic. You got to be aware of voice leading and chord tones, and that's a huge thing that I got from playing jazz, from early on, from the age of 16 on, because of exactly that. You had to navigate, harmony in a different way than a straight rock and roll tune might present. A minor pentatonic, I got this. So it was great for me just to grow as a lover of music and to hear a lot of different styles of music. But then what that does to your ear and your melodic mind, and how to navigate harmony like that. So now that when I'm playing straight rock tunes, if there's more than one chord, I'm really as much aware of the overall key as I am, what's that chord, and how this note affect what that sounds like in that moment. If I'm in A minor, but there's a G major going, well, you're going to hear that C resolve to a B at any second, because I'm going to let you know the harmony at that time. I can think about it, intellectually and communicate that to you, but in that instance, it's very much an instinct and a melodic direction that I'm going to want to hear. I'm going to want to hear that tension and release, and that it's just the players that I was gravitating towards, Lukather and Carlton and Metheny and Robin Ford. That's what, even if they were playing rock, that's what they were doing. It was much more about the voice leading and really hearing that harmony in just what they're playing, regardless of what the band's playing. You could extract that from the mix and go, exactly what's going on harmonically by their note choice, right? So the jazz and those particular quartet of guys, and Mike Stern as well, really, to use your word, informed. It just really informs everything that I do musically. Hopefully to good effect. People talk about my sense of melody, but that's part of it. It's not only just being a huge pop and Beatles fanatic, but also just the ability to navigate things in a way that, can be beautiful.
Yeah. So you just answered, essentially, how do you sort out your sense of melody? Because I hear when you play over the changes, you obviously methodically set up the changes for your playing, and then you play so well over them that I was going to kind of ask about, but you just kind of outlined that. So thank you. That's great.
You know what tune that is?
I don't.
Okay, it's a jazz standard called All the Things You Are. And so I was just essentially thinking of the changes and voice leading through them. So, but hopefully you heard the harmony as it was going by.
Definitely.
So the harmony's moving quite a bit, but hopefully it sounded not so difficult. B- on that one. But you get the idea. On my best days, I like to do that first thing every day. I'll sit and play a standard, that or similar to, sometimes with iReal Book, which is an app that plays any standard, any key, any feel, any tempo, and just improvise like that, and just try to get the fingers going, get the improvising mind going, and there's multiple phrases there that I would have never played before, and it's all just because I'm just in the moment trying to connect things musically, and it's something that I again kind of cultivating over years. But when I hear players like Chet Baker, kind of a interesting figure in jazz, jazz trumpet player, horrible heroin addict through most of his life. But even in his later years, and he'd lost all his teeth, and somebody had mugged him and knocked his front teeth out, and he was playing with dentures. But I never heard him repeat things, which is unique in any jazz player or rock player. Everybody's got licks and stuff that you're going to say in a musical sentence. But I started recognizing that, man, he's always in the moment, and it's such a heartfelt, deep thing that he's putting out there, that's okay. When I got back into practicing jazz, you can go back and learn all the Parker licks and Joe Pass and Wes, and I love players that can do that. And it takes a lot of brain work, but what I'm going for is something more, in the moment, and more hopefully coming from my heart, and not just, a recitation of great things that other people have said. That's always going to be there. Of course, I play licks like everybody, but in the moment just now, there would have been a lot of melodies that I don't remember what I just played, and if I played it back, I might go, that was cool, or what was that, or I might have to relearn it. So that's a cool place to work towards, and hopefully doing it in a way that makes sense musically.
So do you find that you are able to incorporate? Do you prefer to incorporate a certain amount of improvisation in pre-written stuff that you're doing?
It depends. It depends on the tune or the band, so there's certain, and that to say that, thinking back to the Resolution record, that was the first record where I gave myself permission to write everything. I always kind of had this jazzer session guy mentality of no, everything's got to be improvised for, first take, whatever. And it's handy if you get it that way. Trust me, it's beautiful if you get it. But I'd done the majority of the basic tracks for the Resolution record, and I was unhappy with all of it, just because I just heard myself doing, things I'd already heard me do and other people do. So I took the basic tracks and just scrapped them, but I learned what I improvised that I liked, and then gave myself permission to just write around that what I'd like to hear. And that was kind of a cool exercise, and it was fucking really hard. It was really challenging me to do that, because then it was like, oh, I can make this, exactly what I want to hear. Well, man, that's going to take some work. And it did. So was very, but by the time we got done with the record, it was like, I could listen to it and go, oh, I'm happy with every freaking note. Cause by the time I recorded it, I had it in my head exactly how it needed to go and didn't settle for anything less. So we do 20 takes, because I'd worked on it hard enough to know exactly what every note needed to sound like. So some of those solos, I'll recreate it live because it is composed. Those songs are through composed. Now, I'll inject as much current energy as I possibly humanly can in those moments. It's not going to sound like I'm just saying something I've said a million times. It's going to sound fresh in the moment because of that energy that I'm going to put into it and the feel of the band. But I really do love, of course, as much improvisation in a set as I can have as well, because that's, even more real, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a classical player. If I think about the resolution stuff and things that I've done like that, consider it like a classical piece in that the artist is going to imbue everything they can into that performance to make it as much in the moment as they possibly can, even though Bach or Chopin wrote it hundreds of years ago. But it is nice because like songs like Cry for You or Electric Gypsy, I have this space to do something new every night and love the fact that it can be fresh. And so it can be a combination of things. I love both ways equally. They're both challenging, but it's always just to make sure it can just be as great as it can in the moment, even if it's something that you're going to say, right?
Mm. That's great.
Mm.
That's great.
That's right.
So what else would you like to do? Like you've come this far, you say you're just getting started, like,
yeah, I mean,
and you just figured out your tone finally. You're just starting to sound
and that'll change next week though. That's the problem. That as soon as I get that new pedal.
Yeah.
No, it's infinite. It's really, just hoping to create music that means something to people, not just, oh, that was cool for 30 seconds on TikTok. And maybe that's valid now too. And it is. I mean, I enjoy hearing small blasts of amazing playing, I think, like anybody else, but I'm still a song guy. I still want to create something that's meaningful, and improves people's lives in some way, whatever it is. So that's what music's always been for me. I remember in my younger gigging days, like if I wanted to get up for a gig, I put on the first Montrose record, for, later in my life, I needed to cry, I'd put on Pet Sounds or, some Brian Wilson melody that would just bring me to tears, So it's nice that the music can always be there for us, and if I can contribute to that for other people, that's the biggest aspiration I think I could have. Yeah, you want to appeal to your guitar friends too, and hopefully they respect what you do. But I don't want that to be my motivating factor I better make sure there's a fast solo in the,
Yeah.
It's like there's some songs in my later records now that don't even have a solo. It's just a song, folks. It's just sorry if it's not flashy or whatever, but sometimes that's just what it needs to be. The energy and the melody is enough. Okay, we're good here. Let's move on to the next song. Now I might shred on that one, or I might just play simply. But I just want to keep honoring whatever gift I've been given. And by practicing every day, that is what I do. I trying to just improve and to keep writing tunes, hopefully improve in the songwriting and just get to a deeper level of expression. And I know that there's so far to go because I've seen plenty of other great players do it, and I know that even they can keep growing. So as long as it's amazing that we have this in our lives, that we have this music and our passion specifically for the guitar. Mm-hmm. Not everybody has this level of love for something, beyond their faith or beyond their family. And we need that, if you're a faith person, you've got that, your family, there's no deeper love, but it's also good to have something positive like music to dedicate your life to, or at least just be a fan of and to, as a player, participate in. I can't think of a better way to go,
That's well said. Is there any collaborations that you haven't done yet that you're kind of like, you're like, oh, I'd love to write a song or do something with these people or that band?
Well, man, I had so many heroes. Of course, if Ringo and Paul can call anytime, I'd be happy to play with either one of those guys. I don't know what I would do with Metheny or if he would even have me, but I just love him so much, and his arc of his career and his output has just been just so incredible. Robin Ford and Carlton, Lukather at some point, we've become good friends, and hopefully we'll do something at some point. you know. But gosh, you know, I'd love to do something with Nora Jones, Emmylou Harris, Ann Wilson, you know, just some great singers I'd love to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love this. The sound and feel of Nora Jones's records are just incredible.
She's wonderful, man. The recordings are really impeccable.
It really are. Did you see she did the rooftop performance on the Empire State Building of some of the Beatles rooftop Let It Be songs?
I didn't see that.
I thought this could be really a train wreck out there in the cold. It sounded stellar. It's so freaking. Her band sounded amazing. It was Brian Blade on drums. I'm gonna forget the other guy's name but it was just, you know, quartet, and she's just so lovely. So I'd love to do a record either with her or with that vibe, you know what I mean? Just such a relaxed, beautiful feel, you know, so great. I just like to have her come play electric piano. I love her piano playing, man.
Yeah,
so great.
Now you'd fit in with all those people that you named. I think it would be really interesting to see you do something with Anne or with Nora or you know, but then also with Pat. I mean, I want to hear you chop it up with Pat.
God, that would be humbling, but man, I think we could have some fun. But who knows? Yeah. I just saw him. He just came through town with a tree. It was just him, drums and bass. No, I'm sorry, him and keyboards and drums. Yeah, so this great young drummer from Houston and another guy playing keyboards, sometimes keyboard bass. But they did a selection of Pat's entire career that was incredible. Everything from Bright Side's Life to even the Ornette Coleman out stuff, and just beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, he had his guitar sent out for a couple tunes. Did Are You Going With Me, which is my favorite. Yeah, it was an incredible concert. It was great.
Wow.
Very inspiring.
Well, I'll give you one last question here before we sign off, and that's just, I'm curious about, like, of the modern players, of the people that are out there out front nowadays, and that may be, you know, subjective to what you're looking at, but who are you listening to, or who do you admire as far as like the modern players that are out there?
It depends on what modern means.
In the last 10, 15 years, let's say.
Well, let's just say that. So I'll talk about younger players. I'm 58, so we've got a lot of players to talk about. I used to call Eric Gales my favorite player under 50, but he might be pushing 50.
He's incredible.
Eric Gales and Derek Trucks, you know, even though now they're well mature into their years, but you know, had a sound early on that was clearly special. Eric's energy and vibe, and he's a lovely guy, and his wife LaDonna, I love him a lot.
Me too.
And Derek, of course, not a sweeter slide tone player out there. My buddy Josh Smith, I'm a big fan of. I just saw Joe Bonamassa for the first time. Embarrassed to say, but man, what a player and what a incredible show he does. It's just 2.5 hours of incredible guitar playing. So if any of those guys, maybe they're not modern because they're, you know. So there's a guy that I watch on Instagram called Josh Meter.
Oh, Josh is one of my favorites. Are you kidding?
He's just a beautiful. It's astounding what he's doing. It just looks so. In fact, I took a lesson with him. I was watching some YouTube interview. It was just like a podcast interview or something, and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm doing lessons on Zooms, you know, Skype, whatever. Hit me up on." I'm like, yeah, I'll. So we had a great chat, and I learned some stuff from him that was really cool. I mean, whether it'll really, you know, seep into my technique or not, I'm not sure, but it was a really, really cool guy, and clearly has worked hard. He had a dad that was teaching him. His dad was a great stand-up bassist in a gypsy jazz group, and so I think from the age of 7 or so, he was getting lessons every morning from his dad before going to school. And so, yeah, he's just incredible. And I know there's so many great players out there, but I'm not going to remember anybody's name right now. So my apology. But Josh, yeah, really struck a chord, so to speak, and really has got a beautiful technique. I should give a shout out to my cousin's son. So my second cousin, once removed, Ben Garnett. Check him out. I think he's got an acoustic record coming out. He went to North Texas and studied jazz and is, you know, deep into all the jazz stuff, and really, but he's a Julian Lage fan. And he's gotten into this acoustic thing. Really beautiful player. He's going to really make a name out there. So check out Ben Garnett if you get a chance.
I'll definitely check him out. I was going to say, in addition to Josh Meter, I found Josh around the same time I found Ben Younson. I don't know if you're familiar.
Okay. I'll check him out. How do you spell the last name?
Last name is Euson, I think.
Okay.
Ben Younson, and I don't even know how to I mean, it's on the same level, but different than Josh, but like where you're like, but Ben is very wide intervallic.
Oh, wow.
Like, just like, you're like, wait, he's just doing diminished chord all over the thing. And he makes everything sound so cool. And it makes me, I'm almost mad. I'm like, you're ridiculous, dude. Like,
I know, right? Well, yeah. In moderation, we gotta hold on to whatever dignity we can.
Yeah.
No, but there is. It's so great, and that's what I'm talking about. It's just my own personal path of, I know there's so much farther to go, and I'll never get to the technical level these guys are on, because the way they're starting at a younger age, and it's just. But the envelope keeps being pushed, and it's beautiful because you want involvement. We love, the early blues guys, and we want, and that it's important to keep that in mind. But, I think they would want as much as everybody else to keep it going. Keep the flame going and the inspiration to push the boundaries.
Absolutely.
As well as embracing all the stuff that came before you, because I'm still a fan of everything that's come before me.
Same. Yeah, it's a good
to keep up. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to go. To be to look back and have a sense of gratitude towards the giants that we stand on the shoulders of, and also
Always.
Look forward and be like, wow, we always find ourselves in between, somewhere, this historic past and this futuristic happening that's kind of just out in front of us a little bit, and we just got to do our best.
That's the cool about the older stuff, though, is like, it might have been done by other people, but how you assimilate it and how you filter it into what you're doing, that's what can lead to new and creative stuff too. It's like David Bowie. I love what he used to talk about himself as he was a collector. He didn't think he was really an innovator, though. You could look at his career and go, man, he did a lot of really cool, innovative stuff. But he was very upfront, said, no, I'm a collector. I just love these bits of other things that I'm into. Like for Ziggy Stardust, clearly Mark Bolan was already happening. The glam thing was starting to happen. So he just kind of took some bits of inspiration, but it became him. Same as the Beatles taking all the, African-American rock and roll, American rock and roll, and they put their spin on it, and now it's all of a sudden this fresh thing. And they're just kind of trying to be Smokey Robinson or the Shirelles. Sounded like them, though. As
it comes through their filter, it comes out in a unique way.
No, that's the key, and that's the goal. So whether it's absorbing the past, it's all positive, or being inspired by someone very forward in their approach, like the guy you mentioned, and Josh and these younger players. Inspiring, man. Just never be discouraged, though. You can see that there's, if Yngwie was the first player I would have heard when I was a kid, that might have been, I'll never be able to do that. I still feel that way, but now I'm in a place where I just love it and go, fuck, that's just beautiful. Or Holdsworth or whoever it might be. But just know that's them being their greatest self. You just got to figure out the path that you want to go on and just be the best yourself that you can be, and know that that's good enough, and to keep building on that. Not to be intimidated or discouraged by somebody that's on a really, really high level, because that's them. You don't have to be them. You be you. This is self-help 101, and I wish I would have heard myself say these things when for the last 50 years, right?
It's a good place to leave it, Andy. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you playing so much. And sharing your tone, sharing your outlook on life.
Yeah, I'm happy to chat, man. Thank you.
It's wonderful. I hope you have a really great day, brother.
Yeah, it's already been a great day. So now it's win-win. And I can now have an afternoon snack and maybe a little coffee. Who knows?
Yes.
Electric
Truth is out soon. When is it?
April 1st.
April 1st. Okay.
Yeah.
Not too long here.
No
couple
fooling.
days.
Yes. Yeah. Just a week, isn't it? What's the date? It's today, 24th.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's finally happening. Look at that. I'm giving birth.
Well, hopefully it's not too painful.
Exactly. Well, it always is, but you just got to let it go. You got to let it get out there.
That's right. Well, it's a wonderful record. People will be really happy with it. Long-time listeners and new people alike. So everybody check out Electric Truth on April 1st. And again, man, have a great day and appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate everybody listening. Thank you, man, so much for your time.
Take care, Andy.
Bye-bye.
Players Pick Podcast, Picks and Perspective with Chrys Johnson.
Players Pick Podcast is brought to you in part by our good friends at Dunlop Guitar Products, Kiesel Custom Guitars, and our favorite new coffee company, Road Roaster Coffee. coupon code PLAYERSPICK for 20% off your first order at roadroastercoffee.com.